You tap your card for a $6 coffee. You don't think about it. The line moves, the cup lands in your hand, and the transaction is already gone from your memory. Behind you, someone buys the exact same coffee, same $6, same cup, completely different event. Because $6 is never $6 in America. It's a percentage. And depending on which rung of the income ladder you're standing on, that percentage is either invisible or it's the difference between making rent and not. The median American household brings in a little under $7,000 a month before taxes. Some bring in $2, some bring in $30. Same country, same coffee, same prices at the register. So let's climb the ladder together, one rung at a time. $2,000 a month, $7,000, $15,000, $30,000. We'll follow every dollar until it's spent, and by the fourth rung, you'll notice something that has almost nothing to do with money. Start at $2,000. This is not a hypothetical. It's roughly what a full-time worker earns near the bottom of the American labor market, and millions of people live inside this exact arithmetic. Rent goes first, and it takes everything it can. A modest one-bedroom in most mid-sized American cities runs $1,100 to $1,400, so the only survivable moves are a roommate, a studio, or a much longer commute. Call it $1,100. Over half the month, gone in a single transaction. Then the car, because in most of this country there is no other way to reach a job. Insurance, gas, and the repair you keep postponing. $250 on a good month. Groceries cooked at home carefully. $350. Phone, $60. Utilities, $120. Add it up and you land near zero. Not near zero as a figure of speech, actually near zero. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks this every year in its Consumer Expenditure Survey, and the pattern barely moves. The lowest earning fifth of American households put around 40% of their spending into housing alone, and as a group, they spend more than their pre-tax income. Their ordinary month, with nothing dramatic in it, does not balance. So what fills the gap? A credit card, a relative, a payday loan, a missed payment. And here's the first invisible mechanism. Being short isn't just uncomfortable, it's expensive. Dip below zero and the bank charges you around $35 for being poor for 3 days. Before recent reforms, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found Americans were paying well over $12 billion a year in overdraft and insufficient funds fees. $12 billion, harvested almost entirely from people who had already run out of money. It compounds from there. You can't buy the bigger, cheaper package. You fix the car late instead of early at triple the cost. You pay worse interest on everything precisely because you have less. Economists call it the poverty premium. Your last dollar simply buys less than someone else's spare one. And it doesn't stay in your bank account, it moves into your head. In 2013, a research team including Harvard economist Sendhil Mullainathan and Princeton psychologist Eldar Shafir published a study in the journal Science on sugarcane farmers in India. These farmers are paid once a year at harvest, so the same person is cash poor one month and cash comfortable the next. Same farmer, same brain, same fields. They performed measurably worse on cognitive tests when they were broke, not because poverty makes anyone less intelligent, but because scarcity is a background process that never closes. It runs while you're driving, working, listening to your child. The researchers compared the effect to losing a full night of sleep, every day, permanently. Now step up to $7,000 a month. This is close to the American middle, $84,000 a year, a skilled trade, a teacher, and a nurse together, a mid-career office job. On paper, it's 3.5 times the first rung, and that should feel like a different planet. After taxes, call it $5,400 landing in the account. Housing takes $1,900 because you needed a school district. 2 cars and their insurance take $900 because 2 people commute. Childcare takes $1,100, which is not a luxury but the price of both parents being allowed to work. Groceries, $500, utilities, phones, insurance, subscriptions, $400, student loans, $250. That's a little over $5,000. There are maybe 300 left. This is the rung where people quietly start to feel crazy. They earn what their parents would have called a good living, and there's still nothing at the end of the month, and they assume that must be a personal failure. It isn't. Elizabeth Warren, before she was a senator, wrote a book with her daughter Amelia Tyagi called The Two-Income Trap. Their argument was uncomfortable and well documented. As families added a second income, the money didn't turn into breathing room. It got bid straight into fixed costs: housing near good schools, childcare, health insurance, a second car. The raise arrived and immediately went to work for someone else. Discretionary income didn't grow with the paycheck. The paycheck grew, and the cage grew with it. And there's a specific American pressure sitting on this rung: health. KFF, the Health Policy Research Group, estimates that around 100 million American adults are carrying some form of healthcare debt. Not reckless people. People who got sick in a country where one ambulance ride can cost more than a month of rent. So rung 2 isn't the safety you were promised. It's the same tightrope, strung a little higher off the ground. Rung 3. 15,000 a month, 180,000 a year. This is roughly the top 10% of American households. Two professionals doing well, a senior engineer, a specialist starting out. Taxes take a real bite here, so about 10,500 lands. The mortgage is 4,000 because the house grew. Two nicer cars, 1,200. Private school or better childcare, 1,800. Food and restaurants, 1,000. Travel, gym, subscriptions, insurance, another 1,000. 9,000 of life, 1,500 left over, sitting in an account with nothing urgent to do. That 1,500 is the first genuinely new thing to appear on this ladder. It's the first money in this entire video whose job is not to be spent. But notice the strangest part of rung 3. It doesn't feel like $15,000. Ask the people living here, and most will describe themselves as comfortable, tired, and slightly behind. Psychologists have understood why for 50 years. In the 1970s, a team led by Philip Brickman studied lottery winners and found that after the initial thrill, their everyday happiness drifted back toward where it started. The baseline moves. Whatever you have becomes normal, and normal stops registering as anything at all. The economist Richard Easterlin found something related and even more inconvenient. Across decades, as entire countries got richer, average reported happiness didn't climb the way anyone expected. Your income relative to the people around you turned out to matter enormously. Which means that on rung 3, you didn't just buy a bigger house. You bought a new set of neighbors to compare yourself to. Now the top rung. 30,000 a month, 360,000 a year. Top few percent of American earners. And the system starts behaving differently here, in ways most people never notice. The Social Security payroll tax, for example, only applies to wages up to a capped amount, in recent years somewhere around $170,000. Earn a dollar above that line, and that particular tax simply stops. A nurse pays it on every dollar she earns. Someone at $360,000 pays it on less than half of theirs. Nobody cheated. The rule is written that way. Say $22,000 lands after taxes. The mortgage takes $5,000. Cars, $1,600. School, $2,000. Food and dining, $3,000. Travel, insurance, everything else, $1,500. $13,000 of life, and $9,000 left. Here's what makes this rung different in kind, not just in size. That $9,000 doesn't sit still. It goes into index funds, a retirement account, a down payment, a business. And the second it lands there, it stops behaving like money and starts behaving like an employee. It works overnight. It works on weekends. It compounds. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances shows the wealthiest 10% of American households own roughly 9 out of every $10 invested in the stock market. Not because they're the only ones allowed in, because they're the only ones with a monthly overflow to send there. So 4 rungs: 2, 7, 15, 30. But the largest jump in power is at the top, and it's not about comfort at all. In 2010, Nobel laureates Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton found that emotional well-being in America seemed to stop improving somewhere around $75,000 a year. That became a slogan. It also didn't hold up cleanly. A decade later, Matthew Killingsworth at Wharton gathered millions of real-time mood reports and found well-being kept climbing past that line. In 2023, Kahneman and Killingsworth did something academics rarely do. They collaborated to reconcile the two findings. The honest version is this: for most people, more money keeps helping, gently, with diminishing returns. For an unhappy minority whose pain isn't financial, it stops helping almost entirely. Which means the plateau was never about an amount. It was about what the money was being asked to fix. So what does each rung actually buy? Not objects. Time. At $2,000 a month, you live in last week. Your money is spent before it arrives, so you're not funding this month at all. You're paying off the last one. At $7,000, you live in this month. You can plan 30 days ahead and no further, and one hospital visit resets the clock. At $15,000, you live in this year. Vacations exist. Emergencies are annoying instead of structural. At $30,000, if you refuse to let your lifestyle eat the overflow, you live in a decade. You can say no to a bad job, wait for the right offer, be sick without being ruined. That's the whole ladder. It isn't a scale of luxury. It's a scale of how far into the future you're allowed to see. And that's why the number on your payslip tells you far less than the shape of your month. You can earn a great deal and still be living on rung 1 if every raise you've ever received was handed immediately to a bigger apartment. And you can earn modestly and still be building rung 4, slowly, in a boring account you rarely open. So tomorrow, you'll tap your card for a $6 coffee. You won't think about it. But somewhere in that $6 is the answer to a much bigger question. Not how much you earn, but how long your money is allowed to stay before someone else puts it to work.